Welcome back to another episode of the Tacho Show. Now, today's episode is brought to us by our friend over here, NeptunaShadowBlade. So, Neptuna says, thanks for the FEH update, Tacho. Much appreciated, as always. I was wondering if you would consider making a new video about some lesser played units and good builds for them, maybe based on unit archetype, like Cav Beast with high speed, and then suggest some good generic builds with different budgets. Would love to see such a video. Alright, well, Neptuna, this may not be exactly what you were asking for, but it's pretty close, and I think it is a good idea for us to dive into the different archetypes of units that are in FEH right now. And we're also going to take a look at some generic units and generic builds that will fit that archetype. So let's go ahead and take a look. And also, by the way, we are taking requests for videos again. So if you've got a video idea in mind that you would like me to cover, go ahead and comment that in the comment section down below, and I will try to get to them if I can. Okay, so starting us off for our unit archetypes, we have, of course, the classic Godsword. Now, despite being called Godsword, this could actually fit in pretty much a plethora of different weapon types besides swords. So axes, lances, even dragons and beasts can play a role similar to this, as long as their stat spread fits what's going on here. So the goal of a Godsword is to have high speed and then decent defensive res, just enough that you'd be able to tank a shot or two and go from there pretty much. Sometimes the best defense is having enough speed to avoid getting hit by an enemy double attack. And then also the nice thing about having high speed on these Godsword units is that it gives them potential for a player phase as well, because they can attack into things and possibly get their own double attacks to go off. So that's pretty much the first unit archetype, the most popular one. And the main takeaways here in terms of skills, these builds that we're going to look at, by the way, are not like definitive builds that you should run on every unit. Every unit has their own kinks and quirks that you may have to work out with your build to try and get the most amount of different and varied effects on there. But for the most part, the bread and butter Godsword is going to look something like this. So we've got null follow-up, of course. We got -1 special trigger. Godlike reflexes comboed with Lagu's friends, so we can get it to go off over and over again. Endless Tempest here gives us bonus movement and then nullifies enemy bonuses, which is really dirty that they tacked that on there. And then Null Sea Echo and Distant Bonus Doubler, of course, so we can just counterattack anybody regardless of range or regardless of fire sweep or any nonsense. So classic build for a classic archetype. Alright, next up we have the Gale Force build. So this one is more so seen in Aether Raid's offense specifically, where you want to attack foes and then start up a daisy chain of Wings of Mercy. So for your Gale Force initiator, of course they're going to want to have Gale Force themselves, and then doubling up on Fury. We have Fury 4 and then Fury 3 here, so we take a lot of chip damage. And after 2 procs of your attacks, you should be down low enough on HP that your allies can start jumping in with Wings of Mercy and setting up a big Gale Force chain to wipe out the enemies. So that is the combo here. And one other thing about Gale Forces, the initiators at the very least, you want to make sure that your Gale Force initiator has one of 2 effects. The first being extra actions. So units like Gulveig and Edelgard that just get a bunch of extra actions after combat. Those are really good initiators for Gale Forcing. Or if you don't get that, the other way is to get a lot of bonus damage so that you can just smack the enemies and make sure you get rid of them. Of course, Gale Force running that as the special, it deals no damage. So you're going to want to make sure you're covering your extra damage somewhere else. And if you're not getting it from the special, the next best place would be getting it from the weapon. Panette also, in particular, works out really good here because the lower her HP is, the more damage she can do. So doubling up on Fury, cutting her HP, is actually adding more to her DPS, which is very good. Okay, next up, of course, we have the save units. So far save and near save. I kind of group them both together here, but there are minor differences which we will go over. So first of all, of course, we're running near save twin on a near save build, but if you wanted to go for far save, you could also just go for, what is it called? AR twin far save, which is the variant for tanking ranged enemies. And instead of running Escutcheon, in that case, you would go for Sacred Cowl. Now, very important, we run the Marth Ring on this unit in particular, because Marnie does not have -1 special trigger. But if your unit does have -1 special trigger, you have two options. You can go for Marth Ring and Pavis, or you just go for Escutcheon and then Ike Ring, or some other ring that maybe gives you better mobility, like Sigurd or Celica, and things of that nature. So the main takeaway here as well is also Shield Fighter. So very important, Shield Fighter is the skill that allows these save units to really excel at the moment. So it's basically the second coming of Hardy Fighter. Gives us cooldown reduction on our defensive specials like Pavis, Aegis, Sacred Cowl, Escutcheon. And then it also double procs them on the enemy attack. While healing HP and all that nonsense, you do stat drops on the enemies too. So just very good. Can't really complain with Shield Fighter. It's pretty much a must-have on damn near all these armored units right now. And of course, in the case that we're running near save, you probably want to go for Mystic Boost, because it blocks enemies from doing adaptive damage, and right now, the primary melee attacker has adaptive damage built in, so you want to make sure you can turn that off in some way or form. But otherwise, very self-explanatory build. Just keep your save units close by, and they should protect all your allies from attacks. Okay, the next build here is the Omnitank build. So Omnitank's another classic type of unit that they've been more aged, I would say, than a lot of the other archetypes, because now that save units are back, you don't really see Omnitanks as frequently anymore. But I would have to say Omnitanks probably ran the game longer than any other type of unit, because we look back to the days of Brave Ike having his refine. He was like the epitome of what an Omnitank wanted to be. So anyways, right now Omnitanks are kind of similar to Godswords in a way, except in terms of build they are very similar, but where they differ is in their stat spread. So the Omnitanks are focusing more on having high defense and res, having speed as a dump stat, and then having really good attack. Whereas the God units are going for really high speed and then medium defenses and good attack. So we're trying to tank the enemies with just raw defenses here, and of course the build, like I said, is pretty much the same for the most part. The only difference though is that we can't run godlike reflexes, or gust for that matter, on these Omnitank units because they don't really have the speed for it. So instead we just go for Pavis or Aegis, and we're perfectly fine. You'd also tack the Ike Ring on there if you're running Pavis, so you get non-pierceable DR on both melee and ranged attacks. And then Breath of Life 4, we're running this on the Omnitank build as opposed to the Godsword build here, because the Godswords probably want a player phase a little bit more, so getting Endless Tempest is a little better for them. But for the Omnitanks, they want to stick close to the pack anyway. They want to get your ally supports to go off. So Breath of Life 4 works out a little better for them. Alright, the next archetype is the AoE damaging archetype. Basically the AoE nuke build. So, of course, with these, you want to go for skills that are raising your raw stats, particularly raw attack. So Crystalline Water and Verge of Death would be the options. They also nullify any debuffs to those particular stats. So no debuffs to attack or res for this guy. Or if you're running Verge of Death, no debuffs to attack and speed, which can come in handy. And of course, Blazing Wind does a lot of damage. AoEs, there's not a lot of units that have AoE protection. Like, that's still a really rare thing. So we see skills like Lagu's Friend running around pretty often. It gives you non-pierceable DR, and like Godlike Reflexes gives you non-pierceable DR. But all that stuff is in combat. So attacking the enemies prior to combat with an AoE is really, really dirty and a really easy way to pile on a lot of damage that they can't really answer. Now, it's not foolproof. There are some units that do have AoE protection, but it's not really as common right now. So this is the build pretty much. Arcane Blut Gang, brand new weapon that also gives true damage on the AoE, 15% of your attack. So a very dirty weapon. And of course, the rest is pretty much history. We want the most raw attack, so Stillwater doubling up. Or if you're running a faster unit, then Life of Death and Verge of Death. Times Pulse Echo lets us get to our AoE faster, as well as Times Pulse 4 in the C slot there. And pretty much the goal is to just get to that first AoE and then start using it over and over again. Sigurd's Ring also gives bonus damage on the AoE, so that's why we're going for that as opposed to Celica Ring. Also, it gives us Kanto, which is really dirty. So yeah, the Sigurd Ring I would definitely recommend for these AoE builds. You can also run a really dirty AoE build on melee type units if you want, and go for the new B skill Momentum 4, which gives you pre-charge ramping. It's like Rally Spectrum for your AoE attack. So you cooldown charge prior to the AoE going off. Then it also gives you a monster amount of bonus damage on the AoE as well. So melee units are in a really good spot as well right now for pulling off the AoE build. It's just that classically this archetype has been predominantly range type units. So that's why I showed off a range unit here. But right now melee units might even be better at doing the role. Okay, next up we have this type of archetype, which is the flying movement support. So any flying type melee unit, there's a lot of them that on their weapon they're giving some kind of support, like for example Catria giving triangle attack and warping, or the Winter Cordelia who gives dual strike, or also the Ice Tribe Thea who gives you, I think it's triangle attack as well, and then there's a couple of other ones too. There's a bunch of flyers that can give charge or +1 movement on their weapon and so on and so forth. So the idea here is to run Soaring Echo combined with Rain Snap, and then if possible, if your weapon is also giving some kind of movement support, that just adds to the amount of movement your allies can get. So that's pretty much the goal here. There's a lot of units that can do this. There's a lot of flying, really good flying melee types that can pull off a build like this. So pretty much is giving movement support to allies and then letting them handle business afterwards. So this archetype here, just flying mobility, I guess is what I would call them. Alright, next up we have the Dancer archetype, which there's a lot of different directions you can go in for your Dancers. I chose this one to show off for the video, but it's not the only type of way you can build up Dancers. So the idea here would be to combo this type of Dancer with a Gale Force unit, like we see here with Panette, where we're taking a lot of chip damage, so we can allow the Dancer to Wings of Mercy in. In this case, we're going for Mercy Wing Echo, so we get the B slot opened up, so we can run Firestorm Dance, which gives a monster amount of support. Desperation instantly, attacking speed up 6, and then lets our Dancer Canto out of the way. Very good stuff. Endless Tempest, of course. You want to run this pretty much on any unit that can have access to it. It's really cheeky. You get +1 movement permanently, and then you're also nullifying foes' bonuses. And it also gives you stats as well, based on how many movement you used. So just a really powerful skill. The idea here would be to warp into the Gale Force Initiator after they chip their HP. And then you can get an attack off with the Dancer, and then after Gale Force procs for them, you go ahead and dance an ally and get an extra action there. So just maximizing your amount of actions for the turn, just getting as many actions as possible. Pretty much the name of the game, action economy. Okay, this is the support build now. So Seteth I thought would be the best unit to show off for this, but him being a flyer, of course, gives him a little bit of an unfair advantage because he can run a bunch of other flying support type skills like Soaring Echo that maybe the infantry support units can't run. But pretty much the idea is the same here. Just whatever unit you want to go for as your supporter, their entire goal, their entire existence is just allowing your other units to fight better while them probably not wanting to fight at all themselves. So Seteth, for example, gives non-pierceable DR support as well as stat support to allies that are, I think it's in 3 spaces of him. So he just wants to stand there supporting. Breath of Life 4, of course, would be the ideal skill here because he's just standing out of the way and he's giving Breath of Life support to the allies in 2 spaces. Attack and defense snag here. In this case, we're going for some debuffs. So he can at least reposition an ally and then trigger some debuffs on the enemies. This one does sabotage and then attack and defense -7, which is perfectly fine. I'd rather go for Ruse, to tell you the truth, but unfortunately flying units cannot learn the Ruse skills. So Snag is the other family of debuff skills we can go for. Pretty much that's really it. And then the A skill is filler, it's whatever you want, and the special as well is whatever you want. The main takeaway here is that they just want to support. So run a support seal, run probably Breath of Life 4 or some other support C skill, and then some kind of debuffing B skill is what I would recommend. Okay, for the next archetype, we have the melee beast types. These are the defensive ones. So for your defensive beast, of course, Sturdy Beast is the special you would want to go for. Gives you non-pierceable DR, and we can actually run it with Lagoo's Friend now, thanks to Time's Pulse Echo. So you don't have to worry if your weapon has -1's trigger or special trigger or not. You can just find a way to get Sturdy Beast to proc immediately with Lagoo's Friend. So there we go with Times Pulse Echo. They can run the Beast Seal as well, but I think actually once we get more of those Fortune skills in the A slot that give different stats, like the one we have right now, Attack and Speed Fortune, you don't really want to run on an Omnitank type of Beast unit. So maybe when we get Attack and Defense Fortune or Defense and Res Fortune, we'll go for that instead of Distant Bonus Doubler. But as time stands right now, might as well just go for the Beast Seal and then run Distant Bonus Doubler in the A slot. And then Lagoo's Friend, surprise, surprise. Where have we seen that before? On pretty much every single one of these tank builds. So yeah, of course, Lagoo's Friend with Sturdy Beast combos very well. And then even Attack Wave N is what I chose for Keaton here. But there are other C skills you could go for, like Breath of Life 4, for example, and so on and so forth. Endless Tempest could be an option as well. It's just pick whichever type of skill you'd rather go for. And then, of course, we have the fast Beast-type units, which the person who commissioned this video asked for. So, NeptunaShadowBlade, here you go. This is your fast Beast unit build. So, of course, they're in a really good spot right now, post-Restfelger, introducing Attack Speed Fortune, as well as Nimble Beast. And Momentum 4 from Sigurd, we can just tack on there as well to get an ungodly amount of true damage. With special ramping as well, it has Rally Spectrum built in. So, I mean, these fast Beast units are actually looking really good right now. We've gone from the era of Beast units not having access to anything to all of a sudden the floodgates have opened. So, Nimble Beast, awesome special. Gives you speed-based bonus damage, and then it also gives you non-pierceable DR, which is perfect. Attack and Speed Fortune allows our Beast to basically transform for free, and then gives us attack and speed bonuses and some healing. Even Attack Wave N also gives us a lot of attack, some bonus damage, and some more healing. And then Momentum 4, of course, just gives us a lot of extra damage. Like I said before, you can run AoE specials with Momentum 4 if you want to, but Yarn in particular, his weapon here doesn't have bonus damage based on percentages for the AoE. So that's why in this particular case I just went for Nimble Beast. But you could run a similar build like this on other units with an AoE special instead if you want to. So there you go for the Beast archetype. And then finally we have to finish off with the Dragons, which it's hard to call like what unit is actually in a better spot right now, Dragons or Beast. I feel like functionality-wise, Beasts might be slightly better at the moment, but then Dragons have a lot of scoring superiority when it comes to Arena, because, of course, you can run high Dragon Wall on them to score that much higher. In this particular case, though, I'm just showing off a defensive Dragon, just a bread-and-butter, like, classic build for these Dragon types. Distant Counter D with Def Res Scowl, and then even Res Wave D. You can stack Scowl effects, so we get Scowl +2 on the enemy special here. And then Lagoo's Friend, of course, with Dragon's Roar. Times Pulse Echo lets us do that, so there you go. And we're not running any of the arcane weapons in this case, because we want our weapon to have no instance of -1 special trigger. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to use Dragon's Roar with Lagoo's Friend here. So that's why we're going for this one here. This is the female New Year Kana weapon, which gives us non-pierceable DR based on 15% of attack. So that made the most sense for a bait type of build. So there you guys go. Those are just a bunch of different archetypes in the game. Pretty much the primary archetypes that you see most often while you're playing. So let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. If I missed any archetypes as well, let me know. And of course, as we said earlier, if you have a request for a video, go ahead and leave those in the comment section down below and I'll check them out. So this is your boy Tacho signing out. Take care, fellas, and I will catch y'all again on the flip side.